bringing you inside the USL Championship and League One.
Segmer's got there, Marquinhos! He's been knocking on the door! He knocks it down!
Diving into all the biggest stories and top headlines.
You are ripping and roaring today.
This is USL All Access.
It's almost impossible to recreate that level of magic.
With Mike Watts and Devon Kerr on SiriusXM FC.
Welcome, everyone, to a new edition of USL All Access. We hope you've had a great week on this now Thursday night. Believe it or not, Mike Watts, Devon Kerr, and Emmett McConnell to walk you through everything that's gone on over the past week in the championship and beyond. It's been a hectic week. I don't know a better way to put this. The game on whatever day it was, Sunday, did not go according to plan in Oakland. We'll chat about that. We'll chat with the Loudoun United manager, Ryan Martin, who's kind enough to spend about 20 minutes with us. He's excellent, and it's so good to see them on a good run of form. Took a real shot at Charleston yesterday, hit the bar in the 94th minute. Very easily could have taken a point against one of the giants in the Eastern Conference. Also, a ton of moves going on as the transfer window prepares to open. And with that, a number of loan moves and so on to chat through, as well as results from the last week. I am in New York. Devon is in Columbus around the MLS All-Star activities with his duties for Apple TV. Devon, I finally got back to New York. Where do we start with the Sunday game in Oakland? Do we start on Friday?
Great to hear your voice, by the way. And unfortunately, we can't see each other, nor can people see us. You can blame that on me because in all the travel, I acquired some technical difficulties that apparently was involved losing my camera. And yes, we start on Friday. What time did you wake up and see all of the hoopla that was going to be the issues at that point in time with multiple airlines? For me, my alarm was set for 4:45. I woke up at 4:18. I saw the emails and the things flying back and forth, and I said, you know what? I might as well just get up and go to the airport now. How about you?
I called Phoenix and El Paso on Friday at 11 Eastern. We went off the air around 1:10. I got the email that my first flight was canceled at 1:06. So we're talking about flight from Fort Lauderdale, where I was calling that game, to Atlanta, to ultimately San Francisco to get to Oakland. Once that was canceled, my next option ultimately faltered out of Orlando on Delta. Then I was going to Tampa to fly on Delta. And finally, I realized I had been truly crowd-struck, flew cross-country through Long Beach, California on Southwest. And they got me all the way to San Francisco, about 10 hours late, missed our meeting with the Oakland coach. Here's Devon going through interviews with players and coaches one at a time. And he'd start each recording. Hey, Mike, Marion, hope you guys are doing well. I'm just checking in. Also, I have Jasil Cedeno with me. And we just go through this. So I get this 30-minute recording, and here's Devon. He's like, it's now an hour later. I still hope you're fine. Honestly, Marion's the one who got hit the worst.
Yeah.
Marion was planning to leave on Thursday night and ended up spending 2 full days at the Atlanta airport before finally making it 3 in the morning to the hotel the day of the game, which was
she
1
landed
local
like
time.
1:15 and made it to the airport. You landed 1:15, made it to the airport around 3 in the morning. And obviously, bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, we departed at what time? 9 a.m.? 10 a.m.?
9:45 because I had to push this back 15 minutes. All
That's
of this to say, we finally get to the stadium in Oakland, and we had first heard rumblings on Thursday from news sources that perhaps there could be some news on Sunday that would cause network television stations to change their programming at the last minute. It was approximately 11 a.m. Pacific time that President Joe Biden put out a tweet that he would be declining the Democratic nomination for the 2024 presidential election. What followed was both the LPGA and the USL being knocked off CBS for what amounted to 5 hours of CBS news coverage, which I'm sure probably served the electorate better. However, here we are, you, me, Marion, and our entire crew that had to travel, somehow managing to make it to Oakland in time to call the game on CBSSports.com, which is nobody's fault.
No.
But I do want to say a big thank you to Uncle Joe. That one stung. There is in no way a political tilt in any of what I'm saying. I'm just saying that was clearly news that was meant for Monday.
Yeah, we got the shaft a little bit there in that situation. I think that look, if we could play it differently, of course you'd like to go back. Certainly the investment into the show itself
Amazing.
financially was I don't think people recognize the cost and how extensive they are for national television, and certainly on a major network, of how deep into the well you have to go to be able to make sure that you're properly representing the league and the network at the highest of orders. And the league definitely did that. Great feedback behind the scenes. Yeah, look, when the network execs are happy, when the league execs are happy, when the coaches start texting you quotes for the game saying, you guys did such a great job, this was enjoyable. I think it certainly adds a little something to it, but bittersweet. Weird game. Do we want to go into the game right now, or we want to save that? Probably save that, right?
Yeah, and I'm going to make one more comment on this. So here we are. Our producer is actually working for the Olympics on Sunday night. She has to fly cross country to get to Connecticut. I'm on her flight. We are both canceled. She is able to take a flight that she arrives less than an hour in advance for in Sacramento, which is a 90-minute drive, give or take, from San Francisco Airport, arrives in Newark, and only shows up an hour late. I was not so lucky. After multiple cancellations, I spent the night in San Francisco and then flew cross country from San Francisco to JFK on Monday afternoon and eventually got home around 10 p.m. on Monday night. You got out fairly cleanly, believe it or not, to get to Columbus, as did most of our crew. Marion had to fly Spirit to Dallas and then drive to her home in Jackson, Mississippi, which sounds like exactly as much fun as you'd think. So
Yeah.
no one got out unscathed.
No, I will tell you this. I thought I had the most foolproof plan for travel across the country. For anybody that's ever flown to the West Coast, the terminology of a red eye is something that can make you very excited to get home quickly, but can also make you cringe at the thought of how tired you might be. I tried to avoid that. The thought process behind our travel, because I had a producer traveling with me to MLS All-Star in Columbus, was we would be leaving the USL show on CBS on Sunday, straight from the show to the airport, which we in fact did. We were going to take about a 6:15 flight or something along those lines to Minneapolis, land at around 11, go to sleep early, stay at the airport hotel, wake up, and had a 10 a.m. And the thought behind all that was, instead of stretching yourself really thin, catching that short layover through the night and running yourself ragged to get there immediately, you would actually get some sleep, just arrive a tad bit later the next day. And while certainly all of those things did take place, our flight, instead of landing at 11, landed at 2:45. I have never seen an airport in my entire life look the way that it did. It looked like a war zone. And instead of getting 8 or 8.5 hours sleep, we got about 4 hours sleep, because by the time we walked to the airport that was under construction and everything was shut down, took us about 40 minutes, went to sleep, woke up, plane delayed. And then it took us about 6 hours from the time that we woke up to actually get on an hour-and-a-half flight and get to Columbus. Needless to say, all of the travel makes for great stories, frustration for sure, but there was still good soccer to be had, albeit maybe one-sided over the weekend, but storylines galore.
Indeed. So let's chat about a few main headlines around the league from the past week. I mentioned on Friday night I was calling Phoenix and El Paso. McCarthy, Dooley, the front office, brain trust at Phoenix, both serenaded in the worst of ways by the fans in Phoenix, who unveiled a tifo calling for both of their removal based on current results and runnings at the club. There is a free Panos, as in Panos Armanakis, who is away from the team due to disciplinary reasons at the moment. It was, as well as Danny Stone, always a champion, banner unveiled in front of the fans' support section. So that's the backdrop for what ultimately is a 2-0 Phoenix win over bottom of the table El Paso. It comes on the heels of two moves, which were orchestrated by the front office, but also you can tell by Diego Gomez, the new interim manager, Damian Barker-John, who he coached at Queensboro Academy before going to Louisville and eventually Real Salt Lake as a draftee, but also all-league player Charlie Dennis in from Tampa Bay. Major acquisitions for them. Let's not forget the Rowdies paid a transfer fee to Oakland to get Charlie Dennis just in January and then move him to Phoenix now. Dev, I wrote it really simply, and I'll say it as I wrote it. What the hell is happening in Phoenix?
Yeah. So there's a lot here, right? Let's start with Charlie Dennis.
Great ad.
Great ad, for sure. Great ad. A little bit weird. I think people look at his numbers and probably say, well, where are the stats from last year, right? To me, respectfully, last year was an anomaly. 11 goals and 3 assists and 34 appearances. And I think people, along with the ownership group and obviously the front office of the Tampa Bay Rowdies, thought, okay, we got this right in bringing this kid over from Oakland, and we're starting to see the numbers that we saw back when he was in League One with FC Tucson. It didn't exactly pan out the way this year. I would remind people that he started the year unavailable due to injury. So if I'm not mistaken, the first 4 games of the year, he wasn't there. And then I remember midway through the year, well, midway through this stretch that has been midway through the year, call it like 10 games into the season, he was unavailable as well. I don't remember what that reason was. I actually think that he's played much better over the past 5 or 6 games. But there's a false premise, a facade, if you will, of what he should be. He is not going to be the guy that regularly gets you double digits in goals nor assists. And I think maybe too much of an onus was put on him in that area. I do like the idea in Phoenix's system of allowing him a little bit more freedom, if you will. He's not locked down as much defensively. That's just the way that I see it. And that's not a knock on the Rowdies. But the acquisition of Damian Barker-John, to me is a little bit more interesting. And here's why. This is a guy who, at the highest of levels, at the academy level, when he was in Queensboro, super speedy, one-footed player who ran by everyone. When he got to college, he didn't necessarily understand how he needed his game to evolve. His coach, John Michael Hayden, great Indiana player, knows exactly what success is about, both at the collegiate and professional level. He talked about his transition from college to pro. And John Michael Hayden said, listen, I was in the same boat. Neither one of us knew how to defend. And Damian Barker-John dealt with that at Louisville. And so he went through this transitional period of, yes, we still need you to be the guy that's going to run and going to chase, but we need you to figure out how to buy in defensively. And I've been told that he's made a lot of strides in that area, albeit not necessarily the reps that they want him to get it. And the comp that people talk about, interestingly enough, given the Phoenix Rising experience, is actually Tate Schmidt. Tate Schmidt, a guy who came out of Louisville as well. That's a 10-type player. He had FC Tucson experience, right? Rick Shantz knew all about him. A guy that they wanted to transition to outside back who, at least at this point in time, he's made a career through both USL and MLS playing as an outside back. So getting him to buy in to that defensive responsibility, he can build in a 3, being that swing pivot and an outside back if you want to sit him in a 4. But wing back where you get that opportunity defensively, a little bit of coverage behind, but maintaining that confidence up high. I really like the prospect for Damian Barker-John. It is still an interesting little head turn, right? When it comes to Charlie Dennis, the money that was paid, and you're willing to pull the ripcord under the new manager, halfway through the year, basically.
Indeed. It's also the 2022 roots. Rito, Dennis,
Fair.
Asakar, and a lot of people, I think, are rolling their eyes a little bit at that, although there's some magic to that team at the end of the year. And not that Phoenix wants to bet on creating enough magic back-to-back years to get where they want to go. Hopefully Remy Cabral's back sooner than later. I think there's still some lingering affect from the injury that he suffered earlier this year would be sort of the feeling I get. We'll see how that plays, but right now it's Formel at the 9, and they're just trying to figure it out. They play again on Friday night against Hartford on the road on CBS Sports Network tomorrow night, 7:30 p.m. Eastern time, and I'll call that with Ricky Lopez-Espin. Dev, some big League One news. The right back, 25 years old, Nick Akoto, former NAIA champion at Kaiser, in his second pro season on the move from Tormenta to Burton Albion. It breaks the League One transfer fee record. He was born in Miami. It's worth noting he grew up in London, played at AFC Wimbledon under Mark Robinson, who is now the Brewers manager at Burton Albion. It's a great move for the player. Obviously, having grown up in London, he does have a European passport, and that makes these things easier, but it does break the ice a little bit from League One over to Europe.
100%. How many times, by the way, have we seen a young player come to the United States, kind of tear it up, and then get an opportunity to go abroad because maybe that wasn't necessarily his pathway to pro initially?
A name that you'll hear in our interview with Ryan Martin that he coached at Wake, Jack Harrison, right?
Bingo. Yeah, like great example. For sure. Great example. And I think the big thing for me is, interestingly enough, we just kind of talked about Damian Barker-John committing to the defensive side. Nick Akoto has sort of worked his way on the field a little bit further back. I like him there. I like the versatility, if you want, that you can play him on both sides. Although usually when playing on both sides, they move him a little bit higher. But I think if you can get him to commit a little bit more to the defensive side, he's got the speed, really good vision, can defend enough right now. Like, that's a guy where when you continue to push him to the next level, Mike, learning around the right group of people, ball it at his feet, not an issue whatsoever, continue to gain confidence defensively. Like, that's a lockdown type defender. Not comparing him to Trent Alexander-Arnold as a player, but that profile, right? Like the understanding that you can kind of commit into the midfield a little bit. You know, you don't just have to play the game on the outside. I like what I've seen out of him and can't wait to see what the future holds for Nick Akoto.
Handful of moves within the league worth noting as well. Memphis adding a couple of goalkeepers. Tristan Henry, who is a 4-time CPL champion in Canada with Forge, enters there. Orange County adds Tomas Gomez, who in 2020 won the Golden Gloves with Danny Vitiello at Pittsburgh. San Antonio brings in Sofiane Jafal. The Frenchman was released by Orange County last month. Let's see. El Paso, bunch of changes. Liam Rose out. I spoke with Wilmer Cabrera about this. Robert Coronado and Ricky Ruiz, former RGV guys. It doesn't take time to get them familiar with what they're trying to do. They're still trying to save their season there. The loss against Phoenix, especially painful over the weekend. Louisville has actually added a game against Eintracht Frankfurt. They arrived this week. A lot of fanfare, met by the mayor at the airport. Game Tuesday night against the Bundesliga's number 6 team in the last campaign. But, Dev, they also made some news. 2 defenders had their contracts announced in the last week. Sean Tosh, we had discussed on the show previously, also scored the winner against Colorado Springs on the weekend. He's tucked in, locked in. Meanwhile, Amadou Dia, new deal with Louisville City. Terms for that weren't disclosed. Amadou, it's interesting, right? They have 4 wingbacks that would start on most every team in the league. Amadou hasn't always been on the right end of that this year, and yet still signing up to continue at Louisville City. It says a lot.
Let's be very, very clear. Those 4 wingbacks, especially the level that they currently have right now out of them, and historically for a guy like Amadou, they would start on every single team in this league. That's the quality that they bring to the field. I see a couple of different things out of this. Number one, the idea behind the group, certainly spearheaded right now by Danny Cruz and his vision for the team, of continuing to maintain the culture, but also the depth of quality that was in that roster. He's only 31 years of age. Like, we've seen him forever, it seems like. And I'm grateful for that because coming out of Clemson, highly touted outside back that certainly was great to watch. And it's hard to believe that he's in his 10th professional season, right? So you keep that within your locker room. I would also say, Mike, that matters even more in this situation because at 31, at his speed, at his health, you're still going to have the ability to get a lot of production out of Amadou Dia, but especially in the changeover that we've seen, where all of these massive names, the Paolo Del Piccolos, the George Davises, the Cam Lancasters, right? And I'm going from the past couple of years, right? There's plenty of other names that I can add to that. I don't want to do anybody any injustice in this situation. I'm just naming a few. But that's just quality of play on the field. They were the standard that put that team on the map. And everybody else looked around and said, hey, guess what? If you want to play here, if you want to maintain success, this is what we're going to hold you to. Amadou Dia is that type of player.
Yep.
He's the type of guy in a locker room that holds you accountable, whether or not he's in the starting 11 or not. And at times, Mike, I know you know this, it's more important to have those guys than the ones that can just go out and every now and then, every couple of games, put statistics up on the board. You need the ones that are pushing behind the scenes. He's the one that can help you do that.
Yep. In addition, Aiden McFadden extends his time. The transfer completed with Atlanta after arriving on loan this year. He's been signed to a multi-year deal as well. Some quick stadium and ownership news of note around the league. We referenced on air, online, I guess, that the Roots are in late stage discussions to play at the Oakland Coliseum next year. That's the home of the Athletics. They've long announced a plan to build a modular stadium in that complex, which also includes Oracle Arena, the former home of the Warriors. Pittsburgh plans to double or triple the capacity of their stadium, a 3-stage, $10 million expansion project that would bring additional events to the south side of Pittsburgh. They're seeking grant money from Pennsylvania. They've been selling out pretty consistently this year, despite some pretty poor form. Meanwhile, Echo has joined the ownership group. They'll be the majority partner for Oklahoma City Energy FC. They call it a virtual turnkey pro soccer operation in OKC. Cody Lorendi, I asked him online whether or not he was interested in taking part. He said, my heart says yes, but my knees are telling me no. The club has been on hiatus trying to get their stadium situation done. The MAPS project there, Jeremy Allenbaugh mentioning in a quote in that release that there's expected to be added investment to return to the championship. All right, when we come back, Ryan Martin joins us. Dev takes the cap for a walk. We'll take a look at some results from the last week and plenty more coming up on USL All Access.
Let's get back to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
Welcome back, everybody, to this Thursday night edition of USL All Access. We're back on Tuesday night next week. If you miss any part of the episode, it's available on YouTube tomorrow, but also on the SiriusXM app. We promised him, and now we've got him. He is the head coach of Loudoun United. He is the third longest tenured head coach in the championship, worked at Wake and then on to a scout at Toronto and Columbus before he went to FC Cincinnati. And then he took over in 2019 as the head coach for then DC United affiliate, now totally independent side, Loudoun outside of DC. Ryan Martin joins us here on the show. Ryan, great to have you on. Glad you brought the trademark hat. I mean, you came ready to roll, my friend.
I appreciate that. Thanks for having me on. And when you say I'm the third most tenured coach, it makes me feel very old. And if this profession isn't aging me enough, it's that makes me feel even older. So appreciate it. But no, excited to be here. Appreciate all you guys do for it. And yeah, look forward to
it. Do you know who the two coaches who've been with their club longer than you are? Do you know who they are?
I'm going to say Bob Lilly.
Yep, Pittsburgh.
Bob Lilly would be one. And then I would say
the other one's kind of a left field shot because it's the team that came into the league in 2019.
Interesting.
But he's still there.
I don't know. Who's the other one?
Tommy Sohn.
Oh, Tommy Sohn. That's right.
I know.
That's yeah. That's a good one. Wow.
Followed you as a Columbus scout, believe it or not.
Hey, tell you what, that's good company to be in, though. Tommy Sohn, MLS Cup champion, and Bob Lilly, the godfather of USL coaching for the moment, right?
That's right. So Ryan, I wanted to actually start a little bit with your history. I've gotten to know you over these 6 years well, and I think fans who maybe are less familiar don't quite know your full sort of backstory. Obviously, we're a great player in college, but you jump in at Wake, and you were there for the better part of a decade, and then you ended up scouting early in your career with Greg Vanney's Toronto, with Greg Berhalter's Columbus for a brief stint before you got into coaching in the pros. I bring that up because Loudoun United has always had this unique eye for young talent, and I'm interested in how that time at Wake and that time as a scout when you first came into the pro game affects the way you see talent now as you run this Loudoun organization.
Yeah, no, it's something I've always taken great pride into. And I was a recruiting coordinator at Wake when I left. And when I left Wake Forest, our team included Ian Harks, who's playing in the MLS, and Jack Harrison, Ima Tumwase, John Vaquero, who's a Matt Herman Trophy winner, to Chris Duvall, who had a tremendous career, I always got. For me, I always looked at players as not as what they are, but what they can become, and more importantly, what can they become in your system. And our system is very different than Bob at Pittsburgh or Tommy at Birmingham. All three are very different. But the question I ask is, who can succeed in my environment and the way I want to play and the way I see the game, and it might not be the same for the other two. And then the other one is I've always had to really take, USL, I think, gets a little bit of a rap for it can be a league of reputation at times. If, top players always find a job, always find a contract, or guys with success, even if they're, maybe past it a little bit, they always find that next opportunity. My challenge has always been, can we find the next guy that can become something, and I've taken great pride in the guys that have come through here, whether, Ted Cudi Pietro, Kevin Pratis, Moses Nyman, Brian Keogh's over in Germany. Now we have Abdul Latif, Abukora, Bushi. So we've had a tremendous Jackson Hopkins, Batai. So we've had a lot of guys coming through here. So for me, I've taken great pride in who is next, how do they succeed, and most importantly, can this be one of the best stops in their journey as a pro, and can I help them become pros and know what it means to become a pro, where Bob and a lot of the players and a lot of the coaches in the league, and it's not a knock on anybody, it's just a different philosophy, will go with the veteran presence. And I've always kind of looked the other direction, which result wise kind of hurts you, but in terms of player development has always helped. And that's been the same with Greg Vanney. When I was in Toronto, was an interesting stop. I was really in charge of looking for second divisions across the world, Norwegian first division, Italian second division, Spanish second division, and who are guys that are maybe under the radar, finds. And I remember one was the guy, Diomande, that came into the league from Norway. He was one that was on our radar, and a number of Henry Wingo was in there, and a number of guys that have actually gone on to play in the MLS. And then when I went with Greg in Columbus, I was doing their U23. So I was, again, kind of charged with that generation of kids and looking for who's the next player. And at that point, speaking of Birmingham, they had Alex Grignali in the youth academy then, and Keegan Hughes was actually in the youth academy, and Connor Kaklota, who's now a Georgetown coach, etc. But who is the next one that can help the crew, and what's their draft class? And then 3 months into it, John Harks, who was actually at the game yesterday against Charleston, came to the game. We're still very close, but then I was, with John, and for us, it was very similar. Can we find guys that are maybe a little bit under the radar because we were a new franchise at the time in Cincinnati, but guys that had a chip on their shoulder and were hungry to prove something to the league. And we had Eric Stevenson and Andrew Wiedemann and Jimmy McLaughlin and Sean O'Coley, who just got released from somewhere else. Mitch Hildebrandt was a backup goalkeeper at Minnesota. Harrison Delbridge couldn't find a game anywhere, and they all kind of went on to, we finished third in the league that year. But more importantly, a lot of those guys went on to some pretty big things. And so when I came here, a lot of it was finding and helping the best talent. Griffin Yao is another one that's playing, in the Olympics, where, him and Kevin, we're looking at them. And the other one that we have is Riley Bidwa, who, comes in from New Zealand, and he's in their Olympic team. And for us, it was, how do we help him become a full international with New Zealand? But yeah, I've taken great pride in that, and that's a very long-winded answer and a number of different stops. But I enjoy that. I enjoy people. I enjoy getting to know people, and more importantly, I really enjoy helping people get to where they want to go.
Yep, and this Loudoun team on the cusp of getting where they want to go. Ryan Martin is the head coach for Loudoun United, joining us on SiriusXM FC. Ryan, I mentioned third longest tenured coach. You're still the eighth youngest, and so you take this job coming off
That's better. Hey, you just totally redeemed yourself. Now I feel way better.
Yeah, for sure. And the good news is you look it still eighth youngest, but you jump into this gig is the organization is first sort of finding its feet and still connected to DC United. There are still two teams involved in the league, although you guys were somewhat, I suppose, a hybrid, although at that point, really more of a two-team than anything. With that in mind, 2019 to now, before we speak to the organization you're a part of, try and describe the difference in the league between then and now, or even when you're at FC Cincinnati and you started there to where we are now.
Yeah, it's incredible. The professionalism, the venues, Louisville was still playing at, Slugger Field back then. And I remember like my second game even in 2019, my second game with Loudoun, and our goalkeeper got a concussion because he tripped on the turf 6-yard box and hit his head. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, this is insane. But to see what they have now, and the crowds that Phoenix has, and the situation there, and the feel when you go to Sac Republic, and the professionalism they've got going there, and it's incredible. What the franchise are doing, the ownership level, the coaches, the quality of coaches. I think there's a very the coaches in this league are very underrated and don't normally get chances that they probably deserve. You look at Juan Guerra going with Benny down to Houston, and Brendan Burke, but there's not enough guys. Neil Collins got a great opportunity because he had tremendous success. I would like to see him maybe get an opportunity in the MLS. Mark Briggs, Bob, Tommy, like the list, Danny Cruz, the list of great coaches and good coaches in this league is a lot. So I think first that's the second part of it, and then the last one is the overall improvement of players in the league from 2015 to 2019 till now is incredible. When you look at the top players representing their countries, whether it's a small country, big country, it doesn't matter. Every team has quality players. Every team has, depth. Every team has athleticism. So it's a very difficult league. And the standard has just gotten better and better. And I think the league office has done a great job with that. And it's a very good league to be a part of right now.
Yep. Ryan Martin, who's been a part of this league dating back as a head coach, at least, to 2019 with Loudoun on with us here on SiriusXM FC. We've talked about a little bit this year as it pertains to your group. A few more veterans, a little bit more spend. You guys sort of jump out of DC United's shadow and sort of become your own organization. And it's not, here's 7 guys that you're going to find out on Friday afternoon that you need to play that haven't trained with you all week. I mean, the first few years of your tenure were marked by constant change out of your control. So as you look at this group this year, what's the difference for you? Because you're coming off 8 unbeaten. That's the longest run in club history. Although you fall to Charleston, you had a chance to take them to the wire, side that made the final last year on home ground yesterday. Try and put this in perspective, the difference that you feel with this year's team. And I think people could probably argue it began last year, right? A little bit.
A little bit. We started with a base of better players and older players and just more quality, and less players going to DC United. And we had new ownership, but the reality was we were still really operated by ownership and technical staff of DC United. So we still had the Matai coming in and out whenever he wanted, Jackson Hopkins, and it was hard to create a real cohesion, a chemistry, an environment, a culture. This year, Greg Baroni and the team sports have taken full control of all soccer operations. And I think you can see, he's trying to build something, for the community, for a larger purpose, to be a standalone opportunity for to win some games. And it allowed us to bring in really, really very good players, whether you're looking at, Keegan Hughes in the back from Columbus, on loan, to, Drew Skundrich, Tommy McCabe, Florian Velo, Zach Ryan, the list goes, Kwame Awuha. These are all guys that 2 years ago we would never have been able to talk to, because of A, the budget, but B, the how does it help DC United question. And now we have them in our environment, and we have them day to day to fight and compete, to play and become the best that they can. And most importantly, it helps create a culture and an environment where the focus is, how do we Loudon succeed, and how do we become a better team, and how do we grow, as opposed to every question always being, well, how does this help DC United? And I think when you look at even the game against Charleston kicked off at 11 a.m. and the reason was because of camp day, and it was trying to, how do we get the young people in the community out for a game? And while it wasn't maybe ideal for players and coaches from both teams, it was the reason was for the community and for the belief of, can we create something special in Loudon? And so that it's been night and day. I actually have a very good staff right now. I was able to bring an assistant coach from New Zealand, Steve Coleman, who does a great job, and Wellington Phoenix, which is how we got Riley, and brings a wealth of knowledge there. Victor Longchuck, who's an assistant coach, has been in the MLS, and Jack Stefanowski's been an international coach. So for us, our coaching staff is strong, and I've never had one this strong. So it really has a different feel. Obviously, the team's performing at a very high level, and a lot of its maturity, a lot of its quality, a lot of its the vision from the top. And if you have the correct vision from the top and it trickles down, good things always tend to happen.
Good things are happening in Loudoun County, Virginia, with Ryan Martin and a good staff helming the group. Last couple for me, as it pertains to that club record unbeaten streak. Obviously, it comes to an end. Hit the bar in the 94th minute, had a chance to take a point off a really good Charleston team. But on the whole, this is a group where in the past playoffs were your motivation at times, wasn't always DC's. What gives you the most confidence that this is the group that gets you guys into that top 8 come the end of the year?
I think, day to day, you can see the intelligence, on and off the field, the passion and the camaraderie of the group. I think that's the first and foremost. And I also think when you look at a season as a whole, it's, 34 games plus the Open Cup, plus travel, plus preseason. It's a long season, and there's not always the team that starts the strongest. And in fact, it's the team that normally finishes the best. And, for us, 8 games in the middle of the summer was great, because it's a very tough time in this league. So, we want to finish the season at a sprint. We want to be the team that gets gets better from the first game to the last at the fastest rate, and continues to improve. And, the guys take game by game, and, we're going to, fully focused towards Pittsburgh now, and Bob and what they're doing there, which gives another very tough challenge against a very good team and a good environment. So we just continue to get better every day. I believe in this group, and most importantly, we want to be there at the end where we're sprinting towards the playoffs, not trickling in.
You'll see Loudoun and Pittsburgh Saturday. That's July 27th on ESPN Plus. Let's close with this. Let's talk a little fashion here, bud. Ryan, try and describe what the motive is with your dress on the sideline. I mean, it's business casual. I mean, what are we talking about here?
Yeah, I think you go a little business casual. I think so I always wear the hat, as you can kind of see here.
Oh, yeah.
The hat's important to me because when you do have an opportunity to have any type of platform. We lost my sister-in-law to melanoma 2 years ago. So I wear a hat, and obviously it's cancer with it crossed out, in terms of raising awareness for melanoma. We do a big Miles for Melanoma Foundation here. So it is my way of kind of having a platform to try to be a part of something bigger than myself and help the community. So, that's where my hat comes from. And it is my opportunity. And we raised, I want to say, close to 5,000 to 7,000 this past May, with the help of Attain Sport, our ownership, and our players, for melanoma awareness. And then the rest of my outfit, though, I don't have any type of fundraising or awareness towards it. I just try to have a little fun with it and be business casual. I try to I actually got, and this is, Devon actually got me into this, just so you know. My blazers come from Paisley and Gray.
Wow.
Which Devon actually got me into in the off season. I saw he put an order in. I saw the fashion, and I texted him. I said, "Hey, what is this company you speak of?" And he sent me the link. And next thing you know, I had 5, 6, 7 blazers. And so you can thank or you can criticize Devon for what you think of my outfits.
Dude, keep slaying. I don't have that kind of swag, but I appreciate that you do.
So no, Mike, appreciate it, man. Thanks for having me on as always, and yeah, thanks for doing all you do for USL.
That's Ryan Martin. Devon was out walking the caddy. Rejoins us. We review the week that was in the championship on the other side of the break, right here on USL All Access.
Giving insight to all the biggest moments in Championship and League One. This is USL All Access on SiriusXM FC with Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
We're back on USL All Access. Missed a part of the interview with Ryan Martin. It's available on the SiriusXM app after the show. Also tomorrow on the USL YouTube page. We did have a bunch of national TV kind of last week. Let's start with Oakland, Sacramento. Republic light up the Roots. It was 3-0 at half, 4-0 in the 46th. Republic now unbeaten through 9 on the road and 10 going back to last year, 2 off the league record. Dev, Kieran Phillips said it best at halftime. Marion interviewed him, said, "No, we're going for 5 or 6. We're not satisfied."
Yeah, they certainly stepped up and said, "Listen, get out of the way, baby brother. We own this rivalry." And they made it look like they own the Western Conference once again. The way that they displayed themselves in the first half, they were patient defensively. They were incredibly organized, thought much better balance within the team itself, Mike, something that this team has lacked due to the absence of Rodrigo Lopez and Russell Cicerone in injury. Cicerone expected to be back in a week's time, by the way, so that'll be a pick me up. But I thought Kieran Phillips handled himself great. They allowed the team to open itself up. Probably the first time that we've seen Justin Portillo really get himself face forward and start to spray some passes left and right. I just thought the energy level from Oakland was terrible. If you stepped into that locker room, ask any one of the players, ask any one of the coaching staff, they would tell you that the effort wasn't good enough on the night, and sometimes you have no magic. That wasn't about magic. That wasn't about energy. That was about a lack of interest from the first whistle, and Sacramento absolutely destroyed them. Unfortunately, embarrassed at home, but lest we forget, as much as Sac was struggling, now they've got to win. They're still right there at the top of the Western Conference. And as frustrating as things may have been for Oakland at the beginning, and maybe they were within that match, this is still an Oakland Roots team that, as we're talking, is sitting third in the Western Conference. Not bad problems to have.
All right, Rhode Island 3-1 over Birmingham. Midweek, Crystal Palace national team star Chris Richards honored pregame in his hometown of Birmingham. Rhode Island can't stop scoring. Even Zach Arivo brace against his former team.
How's that, by the way? Zach Arivo, finally healthy. Like a player that if you can get healthy, you're talking about one of the weapons that is one of the most versatile pieces for sure. But it just seems so seamless now in terms of the whole group moving forward, Mike. Watching the way that Albert Dequa and JJ Williams are moving off of each other. I think Fuson in the middle has done really well for himself. Mark Ibarra seems to be more comfortable within the midfield, controlling things next to Clay Holstad. I really like that relationship. And just overall, we talked at the beginning of this, Mike, like, okay, it's going to come. It's going to get better. Comfort, to me, is everything. It just feels like the relationships, when you watch this team play, the movements are better. They understand all these little tendencies from every single player on the field. Grant Stoneman been much better on the back line. Koke Vegas, every single player has brought their level up. And it was never a question about coaching because Cano Smith has always been that guy. Great direction from his time in Birmingham that has carried over into Rhode Island and is now carrying over into results.
Phoenix 2-0 over El Paso on Friday night. El Paso, a COVID outbreak, a couple players and coaches out because of that. Rash of injuries, down half a dozen starters. Second half was better. Skier's first goal in the championship. Pop Marboy, first goal as a pro. Strong performance from Phoenix, all told. They need to make more, but they got enough.
Yeah. I mean, at this point in time, I heard the fans grumbling about who was against. I'll take anything I can get right now if I'm a Phoenix Rising fan against an El Paso Locomotive team that has struggled as well. Take the confidence, move from it. Remind them that they are at the bottom of the Western Conference. And as frustrating as it's been, you are still 3 points off the playoff line.
5 points out of third.
Like what? I get it. Again, just a tangent here for a second. I understand the frustration by the fans, but I would be very, very slow if I were them to fully pull the ripcord in this situation. I don't agree with everything that Phoenix has done. However, the same fans last year had plenty more patience, and that team won a title. I'm not saying they're going to do that this year, Mike. I would just say let the process play out here, because if there's one thing that ownership group and that front office has always done is investment in the team to try and get better players in to find results.
Yep. Pittsburgh 3-1 over Hartford. Pittsburgh now 8 goals in their last 2 games. They get 3 on 305 passes, 65% accuracy, 36% possession. This was a Riverhounds masterclass. Couple other key results. Louisville 2-1 over Colorado Springs with the Tosh late game winner. Charleston 2-0 over Miami. And then yesterday, as we mentioned with Ryan, 2-1 over Loudoun. Orange County 2-0 over San Antonio. SAFC now 1 win in their last 7 games. And then Tampa Bay goes to Indy, wins 2-0. Jennings and Rivera the goals. When we come back, Potpourri. It's everything we missed. It's next on USL All Access.
You're listening to USL All Access on SiriusXM FC. Here are your hosts, Mike Watts and Devon Kerr.
We're back on USL All Access, closing out on this Thursday night. We're back at our regular Tuesday date next week with Devon, Mike, Emmett. Here we go. The Lights are now 4-0-4 in their last 8, 3 wins in a row. Dev, they get a big jabang for their buck. Say howdy doody to the transfer market.
I just want to put a kid in your hands right away because your dad jokes are on point. Yeah, Usman and Grayson. Grayson, one of the most talked about outside backs coming out of college last year out of UCLA, a guy that was that winger midfielder type role at the youth level, put up a bunch of stats, and defensively they just felt like was better in one-on-one situations outside and could read the game so well. And Usman is a guy who I think he's an unfinished product. He recognizes space really well. And the best way that I could describe him when he moves out of those movements is like a young deer trying to find its footing. Every time I watch him play, he always seems to get to the right space and he explodes there quickly and then kind of tries to regain his composure with his distribution, because the distribution is good, but the balance is just a little bit off. And Vegas overall, I think they had made a ton of changes in general, but the way that they've gone about their business this season, and now with the additions, very technical players that are also explosive in nature. They've got speed, they've got class, they've got a little bit of everything. And certainly one of my favorites at the collegiate level, now doing great work in the USL Championship, Valentin Noel. That'll be a good spot for both of them.
All right, Dev. Pittsburgh now 8 goals in their last 2 games. Will the real Riverhounds please stand up? Are they back?
No, we're not there yet. Respectfully, Hartford was absolutely Oakland was absolutely atrocious in their performance. 2 back-to-back, I might add, by the way, against Sacramento Republic on the second one that they just talked about. And I love me some Brendan Burke. I love what that team's all about. But that team is troublesome at best right now. 8 goals against a team that struggles in one performance and has struggled all season long does not say to me yet that they are back. Have that conversation with me after they travel to Sacramento on August 3rd and then to Detroit on August 7th, and then we can talk.
Last one, Nick Marcanic has now scored in 5 goals, running another rash of goals. 4th multi-goal game of the season, a brace against Miami on Friday night, then scored at 11 a.m. The game started at 11 a.m. He started later than that against Loudoun. 19 goals now, 6 off the league record, sets the club's modern era single-season scoring record. Oopsie daisy, I was wrong. Nick, keep lighting it up, my brother.
And he's well on his way to surpass Paul Conway, who holds the club all-time record of 24 goals set in 2001. Shout out to Ben Clemens in the front office of the Charleston Battery for that. Mike playing well again for sure. I would say that his numbers are still unexpected. Mike, let's make a friendly pact right now. Tell me his season total.
I'm not doing this again.
All right, great. I'll say 20. I'll say 23.
Okay. All right.
You can hold me to that, and I'll get yelled at by Ben Pierman. I'll take the heat, no problem.
We deserve it. Dev, did you learn anything this week? This show?
I learned
anything?
I learned that if it was at all possible, our level of patience for each other's schedules took another step up. I'm always so grateful for you being so willing to accept how difficult it is at times for you and I to kind of get this together, man. I learned that you're great and you're like having a brother. Thanks, buddy.
Likewise, and I learned it wasn't the flight attendant's fault. It wasn't the pilot's fault. It wasn't the person at the desk at the airport, the person on the phone line, the person at the hotel's fault. Patience goes a long way, and saying thank you goes a long way. So thanks to everyone who listens every week. Thanks to the people that get us around. It's easier said than done. For Emmett, who deserves all our thanks every week. Sorry, brother. Devon and our entire team. We'll talk to you again next Tuesday night. Thanks for listening, everybody. So long for now.
This is USL All Access. If you missed any portion of the program, listen back anytime on the SXM app.